Hi, I'm Heather Poduska, brand and business strategist for entrepreneurs who want to make their mark and make their money. Welcome to Thrive, the show where I bring you tips, resources, and people to help you create a more abundant life and business. You're in for high-value content coming to you from industry leaders who are growing their business, making an impact, and rocking their brands. And I'm so excited as we continue this special series on art and entrepreneurship to have my special guest here, Jennifer Truesdale. Jennifer Truesdale is a singer, songwriter, and vocal coach in the Boston area and a 30-year veteran of the music industry. She's written, produced, and performed on recordings for major network television shows, including All My Children, Soul Food, Melrose Place, and many others. Jennifer is also the director of the nonprofit organization Chick Singer Night in Boston, a nationally recognized performance series for women that showcases up-and-coming female performers. She's also the author of the book Get Paid to Sing, The Singer's Guide to Making a Living, Making Music, and will be releasing her brand new CD of original and newly arranged songs early in 2019. Welcome, Jennifer. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Did I get the name of the book completely correct?
You did. It's Get Paid to Sing, The Singer's Guide to Making a Living Making Music.
So if you don't mind, I would love to start with that because
Totally.
the whole series is about making money
Yep.
and entrepreneurship
Yep.
and art. And you are someone who has done both.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about starving artists, and you're a successful musician, entrepreneur.
There's a huge misconception. I think that a lot of people, when they look at artists, and particularly I say with musical artists, when they look at musicians and performers, there's this idea that you're either winning American Idol, touring the world, making gazillions, you're way at this end of the game, or you're starving, can barely make ends meet, sleeping on couches while you're touring in your broken down van. And I think what a lot of people just don't realize is there's this huge middle area of people who are very successfully making a living, making music, whether they're singers, whether they're instrumentalists or composers, and a lot of us are doing a lot of different things, kind of a lot of different aspects to our careers. And I would say that, if you wanted to call it sort of the musical middle class, makes up the largest percentage of musicians. It makes up all the people pretty much that I know.
Wow. I love that, the musical middle class.
Yeah.
That's such a
I didn't
great
invent that, but it's I wish I had.
Yeah.
But so there's all these people just doing what we love to do, and we've figured out, and everybody's way of doing it is a little bit different, but we've all figured out how to make it a lucrative income earning thing.
When did you figure that out, or when were you always successful at making money as a musician, or was there's some learning that went along with that?
Well, frankly, I'm still learning. But no, I think there was a lot of learning that went into it. But when I got out of school, I went to Berklee College of Music, and when I graduated, and I knew even going into college that I wanted to do music and music-related activities totally. I didn't really know what that would be, but when I got out of school, I went to work for a record label because I thought, well, I should really learn how the music business works. If I want to make a living making music, I should really understand how it all functions. So I did that for a long time. So I've always, actually my entire adult life, I have worked in various aspects of the music industry, whether it was as a performer, as a composer, as a record label person, answering telephones, whatever. I've worked in the industry entirely.
Well, I love that you did that, and I think that probably gave you this foundation to be successful.
I think it did.
And I think it's a piece that a lot of musicians don't do. I mean, maybe they don't have the opportunity to go to Berklee and then go and study in the music industry, but you did that and had this vantage point. What are some things that musicians don't know about the music industry that you think gets in their way?
Well, I think, and this isn't maybe specific to the music industry, but what I think a lot of artists maybe don't understand, or some understand and some more than others, is that if you want it to be an income generating endeavor, you have to treat it as a business. So in my business, I recognize that I wear multiple hats. And I try not to wear more than one hat at one time, but I know that if at some point that hat isn't getting worn, then some aspect of my business isn't going to work. So I think that that's the key thing, is treating your art as a business. Not while you're making the art necessarily, but then you have to put on your business hat, you know?
So do you think that there's anything to the idea of selling out and commercialism? I know that sometimes artists, it's that conversation of like, do I make my art to be commercial or do I make it for myself? What's your thought about that?
So my feeling is this: I think the only time you've sold out is if you're doing something that's not authentic. Now, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. But when say you're making a record and you're figuring out either you're writing the songs or you're figuring out what songs to do, you have to do it from a place of being authentic and with integrity. Now, once that is created, then it's time to figure out how to make it commercially viable. I feel like a lot of times what happens is when people feel like they're selling out, it's because they're trying to make something that they think is going to be commercially viable. I think you have to make it first and make it in a way that feels right to you with the intention of, well, I'm just going to make the thing that feels good to me. Then once it's made, say, okay, now, where's my market? Who's my audience? And then find the ways to market it to them. That's when it becomes commercially viable. And if you do that, then you're not selling out because you made what was real to you in the first place.
I love that. And it's so parallel to branding.
Totally.
And to business. And that, everybody's like, how can I make more money? How can I make more money? And it's that's backwards.
Have to be authentic.
Because you burn out.
Right.
You might have some success, but at what cost?
Right.
But it's really hard, I think, for people to to trust that authenticity, that's going to be enough.
Well, yeah, and I think here's where I come from and kind of where I was coming from in the making of this record that I've been working on. I decided that I had to make the record for me. And I had to go at it with the attitude of, if not one person in this world buys it, that has to be okay. Like I have to make it so that even if they don't, I still feel good about it. And then what happens is when you come at it, at least for me, when I come at it from that perspective and I make what feels right to me, well then of course it's going to reach people because it's authentic.
It's authentic and it's made with joyful energy.
Absolutely.
So that is infused into whatever it is you're making and people feel that. And they feel your joy as you promote it and market it and all of those things.
Exactly.
When the morning comes, gently kiss and the leaves with dew. When night falls and the moon shines bright.
Tell us a little bit more about the album. You said you made it for yourself.
I did.
So it sounds very personal.
Well, it's
not personal content, but personal to you.
Yeah,
important to you.
It is. It's important to me. I think that any, and I'll again speak to music, but so any record or product, recording, whatever you want to call it, that you make is a snapshot of where you are at that moment in your life. So this record is a real snapshot of where I am at this moment in my life. My last record was a snapshot of where I was then, and the one before that was a snapshot of where I was then. And so because of that, they're different, they're unique. And it is personal in that I feel like it's really a giving of myself where I am right now.
So is there a theme or a message to the album?
I think that from song to song, the running theme is just the humanness the facets to any one person. I have my thoughtful, reflective side. I have my sassy side. I have my silly side. I have my funky side. And so I think that the running themes are, of course, all the things that are human, part of the human condition: love and loss and longing and joy. Yeah.
So I had an actress on a couple of weeks ago, Paula Plum, who was wonderful, and we were talking a little bit about art and politics.
Oh yeah.
And I think that she quoted somebody that said, all artists must have a political point of view. Do you think that's true?
I know I do.
I do too, but it was an interesting way to think that, like, as an artist, you have to have a point of view about the world.
Yeah, no, I think that that's true, and I think that as artists, I think we have a point of view about everything.
Right.
Because everything, again, I can only ever speak for myself, but I think that everything we see, everything we hear, everything we observe in some way, we take in and sort of put through our artistic filters.
Right.
And so I don't know how you could not then have a viewpoint on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think even what you allow into your filter
That's hard.
is part of the process, because you and I might look at the flowers and you might decide to write a song about it, and I'm like, you know what, I'd rather write a song about the mug.
True.
Right. So even what gets into the filter is very, I think, unique and personal.
Yeah, what gets into the filter, and then also what sort of sparks, what speaks to you. Like maybe that flower pot would speak to me and the table speaks to you, and maybe that purple drape over there just really speaks to somebody else. So yeah, it's like we all are observing things through our own unique artistic lens.
So talk to us a little bit about that spark. How do you know that it's time to write a song about it? Where do you get your inspiration? How do you, choose what's coming through and say, oh, this is the song?
So funny. It's a really good question, and I was just talking with somebody about this the other day, and because I thought it really spoke to how I write as an artist. So I was listening to an interview a couple years ago with the woman who wrote the book Eat, Pray, Love, and she
Elizabeth
said,
Gilbert, right? I think so.
Anyway, she was talking about how the interviewer asked her about her writing process, and she said, I once was listening to an interview with a poet, and this particular poet was talking about how sometimes she'd be out in her garden and the poem would come at her like a freight train, and she just had to run into the house and catch it. And the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love said, that has never happened to me. She said, I have to sit down and write.
Wow.
Every day I have to sit down and write. And that's kind of how it is for me. Now, sometimes I'll be driving in my car and a melody will pop into my head or a lyrical idea. But for me, most of the time, what I've found to have been the successful action is I sit down at my piano and I just start to write. And sometimes I come up with something really good, and sometimes not so much. But it's the action. The action of writing sparks the creativity, and then my mind starts to come up with things. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll just hit record and record little snippets of ideas, and then come back later and put it into a song. Sometimes I'll come up with a chord progression that I really like, or a lyrical idea, but it's the action. It's the doingness that, for me, and I know other artists have a completely different way of doing it.
Yeah. Stephen Pressfield, he wrote The War of Art.
Okay.
And he talks about that, of just, it's not a magic muse. You sit down and you write every day.
Exactly.
Although
it's a skill. It's a developed skill.
Yeah, I think that's true. Although I will say for myself, I am sometimes like the freight train. And often, and for me, it's visual, something. That's why I was talking about the flowers and the mug, because I will see something, a picture, an image, and then it just is like, boom, it's there.
There you go.
And then other times, like when I'm writing, sometimes it happens that way. But it's interesting how everybody has their own process.
Totally.
And even when I have that, That's the initial thing, like it comes through, and then I'll go back and be like,
Yeah.
okay, what stays and what goes.
Exactly. That's where the skill comes in, the craft.
Right.
The craft of doing it.
So when did you, like you went to Berklee, but when did you
did.
know that did you always know you wanted to be a musician?
I did.
How did you know?
I will tell you the story.
Okay, let's hear it.
So I was 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah.
And we had a fair or a picnic or something at the elementary school that my older sister went to. She was 4 years older. She is 4 years older than me. And my older sister had volunteered or agreed to sing at this picnic. And at the last minute, she was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And she totally backed out. And I said, I'll do it.
Wow.
And I got up and I sang the only song I knew, which was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And I is like, this is awesome. I love this. People are cheering. Anyway, I mean, and that truly is how young I was when I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I don't know that I knew at that age that I wanted to be a songwriter. I think I started writing songs in middle school and then throughout high school. But singing, performing, I was in every musical that ever came up for grabs. Anybody said, who wants to sing? And it was always, I was like, yes, me. So I think I just knew. And so then when it was time to figure out where to go to school, and all my friends were like, I don't know what I want to do. What do I want to do? I'm like, I'm going to go to music school because that's the only thing I know that I want to do. Yeah.
So what would you say to a young person now who is maybe dabbling, writing songs or exploring their voice, or they have that feeling that they want to do that, but their parents are like, it's a rough world out there.
Yep.
What would you say to those young people?
So, well, you know, it's funny. I would say what I say to my son because my son is really into sports. And he's like, I want to play pro sports. Okay, cool. So what I would say to them and what I say to him is, okay, look, follow your passion 100%. But no, it is a really competitive thing you're going into. So you have to really know who you are and figure out how you can do it in your unique way. And make sure you have other skills. Because while you're pursuing your career, you're going to need to do something. You know, maybe you do get the opportunity finally to play pro sports. Well, then you're going to retire. What are you going to do then? Or, you know, while you're working towards making your musical career happen, you have to be able to earn income. You have to be able to feed yourself. So have the skills that not only will help you get to that point, but then if you want to be a professional musician, let's say, you also have to have the skills to manage your business.
So what are the, say someone's a little bit older, maybe they're graduating music school and they're starting their music career. I know that when I started, I didn't know anything. I knew how to sing You know?
And you're really good at it.
Yeah, I was really good at it. But I didn't know the business. I mean, an opera's a very, 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 very niche thing, and it's I think in some ways very different from when I was singing because everything.
Well, the whole industry is different.
Yes, there's
totally.
It's exciting in a lot of ways because I feel like there's more access to your audience. There aren't as many hoops to jump through to actually reach the people that you want to reach. I don't know if you feel that way.
No, absolutely. It is a double-edged sword. So back in the days of the music industry that I grew up with and that I worked in, you had the record label, and the record label were the gatekeepers. And they decided which records got put out because you had to have somebody put out your record in a way that the distributors would pick it up, that it could get into the record stores, that the radio stations would play it. So the record labels were the gatekeepers. So the downside to that is, well, the record labels are the gatekeepers, and it's hard to get to your audience without them.
Right.
So now the upside of the way things are now is it's very easy to reach your audience. The downside is it's a very heavily saturated market because everybody can reach your audience.
Right. Which brings us back to brand.
Exactly. And being able to stand out and be seen in a very heavily saturated market. So it's a good thing, absolutely a good thing, but it puts the responsibility and the onus on the artist to figure out who they are and how to reach their audience.
Yes, and I think you hear people saying, well, they groomed me or they helped me figure it out. Even on reality shows like Idol, they have the coaches like this. I can see you as this kind of artist, as this kind of artist. But if you're not on one of those shows, you really do have to figure out, what is my brand?
Right.
How would you? I mean, in business, it's all about your authenticity, your message, your story, your expertise, and all that cocktail of how those things come together so that you can be your own brand.
Right.
But how would you say that for a musician, for an artist? How are they going to stand out? They have their voice, and I mean that their instrument, their musical voice,
right,
and their artistic voice.
Right.
But what else?
Well, I think the thing that I would say is who you are as an artist is what makes you unique.
Mm-hmm.
How you say, I mean, because let's be real. Most of us songwriters are talking about a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
The question is how I'm saying it unique and true to me.
Right.
But then I think that the key thing, at least my opinion is, the key thing becomes who's my audience. Mm-hmm. So if I know that what I'm creating is authentic to me, then the only other, and I make it in an authentic way, then the other thing I need to know is, well, who's my audience and how do I reach them?
So how do you discover how do you figure out who your audience is? Because I had something, as you know, I'm a not so closeted rapper, right?
Right.
And for who my audience is, I was at a family function a couple of months ago, and the college roommate of one of my nephews said, "Oh, I saw your rap video. It was really cool." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know you were my audience."
Right.
So, sometimes it's obvious, and sometimes I don't think it is obvious. So how do you think that you figure that out?
Sometimes it's like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't know. Like sometimes you think, well, probably my general target market is going to be women ages 25 to 50 or 60 or whatever. But then, a 13-year-old might say, I love that song.
Yeah.
Wow, that really speaks to me.
I think that happens a lot.
And you're like, okay, there's a market for 13-year-old girls or something, some other demographic. I think that it's a little trial and error. I think that, go after your core audience, the people are probably your core audience, and then you just kind of see how others respond to it. I think you need to get your art in front of as many people as you can to know that, for sure.
And you're really good at that.
I try.
Yeah, you are. And I love that you're doing all of these things.
Yeah.
And it's a smorgasbord of things.
It is.
Within your brand. Like,
totally.
You are the brand, you are the artist, and you're making these things that you're a singer-songwriter, you're a teacher, you're a coach, you're gigging, you're performing, you're out there doing your thing.
Right.
So tell us, I still want to know more about the album.
Yeah.
What kind of music is it? The style, the genre?
Yeah, so it is, so I am a singer-songwriter first.
Okay.
So I would say that it definitely falls under the umbrella of singer-songwriter. However, stylistically, it's blues, some jazz, some soul, a little gospel, a little R&B, and a little pop. So I'd say that it's heavily blues, soul, gospel oriented. Yeah.
And I've heard clips of it, and it is friggin' awesome.
I love it so much.
Oh my God, and you are amazing. And the way that you wail on some of these pieces, I just like chills up. You're such a pro, and you do have such a soul about it.
As they play, oh so joyful in their game. But I couldn't feel the same. Oh, no matter how I tried, and I just need you.
Tell us a little bit about the process of putting the album together, because we know each other. We've known each other a while, and I sort of lived, getting reports. Okay, this part is done, this part is done. But I don't think everybody knows about the building of
Right.
a recording.
Right. So it's definitely, and again, everybody's process is different. For me, it's been a process of sort of taking each next logical step. So I had the songs. I had written the songs, and then there were two cover songs that I rearranged. So I had the songs in kind of general ideas. Then the key thing is finding the players, finding the studio, the right engineer, an engineer who's also been working as a co-producer with me. I executive produced it, and he worked with me on a lot of it. And then, okay, good. Now, let me do quick little demos of me just sitting at my piano and playing and singing these songs for the musicians to hear. Okay, so then we go into the studio, and I'm like, okay, guys, here's the basic song. I've got, rhythm section. We did it all live.
Wow.
So bass, drums, guitar, grand piano, B3 organ. We did all of that live. And when you're then in the studio with the musicians and you say, okay, this is the song, and they're like, well, what's the feel? I'm like, well, it's kind of this feel. And the drummer's like, okay, well, I could do this. I'm like, okay, I like that. Or I could do, so then the drummer starts giving me ideas.
Wow, that's so cool.
And I'm like, okay, I like that groove. Let's go with that groove. And then everybody else starts to pick up on it. And that's the other key thing is when you have the right players, you can totally trust them to do their thing. Like I didn't have to tell the guitar player what to play. I give him the chord progression. I give him the format of the song. He knows the key. He's hearing the melody. And then he puts in his.
Wow.
Exactly.
That's very cool.
Exactly.
Wow.
And you trust the musicians that they know their instrument.
Wow.
And they know what they're doing.
I can't wait to hear the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so then you've got your rhythm section tracks, and you've got what's called a scratch vocal, because I've been singing along with them. And then the next thing is to start doing the overdubs. So you put down the final vocal tracks. You add, I have a full horn section, fabulous 4-piece horn section on some tunes, 3-piece on another. Background vocalists come in, some strings come in, and you start building the layers. And then the magic really happens when you mix it. It's sort of like a chef mixing in all the stuff. And that's where my engineer and co-producer, Dave Minahan at Woolly Mammoth Sound, is just amazing. And he is such a master at mixing, not only so that sonically it sounds balanced, but we work together to, hey, let's, the horns played that awesome line there, but they didn't play it there. Let's put it over there too. And,
oh, wow.
and you put the whole thing together.
Oh my
It's
God.
amazing.
It sounds so, I'm like vicariously living through your creative experience. It sounds amazing.
It's so fun. And what for me happens is once you start to build it, other ideas come. So now I've got the rhythm section. Okay, that's good. I've got the horns, or maybe I don't have the horns, but maybe I have the horns. I've got a few overdubs. Now I've got to arrange the background vocals. So I was at home just, with my piano and my iPad and singing all the different parts, and then you put it together, and then the background singers come in and you do all the parts. And
Jennifer Truesdale, you are a phenom. Oh my goodness, you are so
It's so
talented.
much
I
fun.
can't wait to hear it. So it's dropping in early 2019.
So the mixes are all done. The next step is we send it to the mastering lab where they put the polish on it.
Yep.
And then we get it off to production. So it will be in hands by early 2019. I won't know exactly till I get the masters back how long the turnaround's going to be, but it's done.
So if people want to be on the wait list, if they want to find out about what your gigs, anything that you're doing, where should they find you?
Yeah, so jennifertruesdale.com is my website. I have the pre-order. So if people go to my website now, they can pre-order the CD. You can pre-order a signed copy plus a digital copy. So you can do that. Or if you go to my contact page, you can get on my mailing list, and I'll send out emails about when it's actually available. When it's available, it'll be up on iTunes. It'll be for sale on CD Baby on my website.
So JenniferTruesdale.com is
the place to be.
Awesome, awesome. So I just want to, thank you for being here and
pleasure.
acknowledge you for, giving your gift to the world
I'm
of
so excited.
sharing your voice, your talent, your brain. your strategic mind and your energy and your beautiful smile and all your energy.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, and thank you for being here. And
Pleasure.
One other question: what does it mean to you to thrive?
Oh, wow. To thrive means to me to follow your heart and your gut and do what you feel is right in that moment and do it to the absolute best ability you can.
That's awesome. I love that.
And to learn from it as you go.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
And thank you also for joining us. And as always, until next time, here's to hitting all your high notes. Take care. Bye-bye.